I doubt it.
Employee of the month, everyone! Now watch my review of LA Noire, or I'm gonna have to take you outside and beat you to a goddamn pulp! Released in 2011, my personal favourite year for games, LA Noire was a big hit both critically and financially, but has since been forgotten about by most gamers. Is it deservedly so, or has one of the best games of recent times sadly gone under the radar? Well, don your fedoras and whip out your notebooks, it's time to find out. Our setting is Los Angeles in 1947, 2 years after World War II. You step into the shoes of Cole Phelps, a former war hero who finds himself working at the LAPD. After he's successfully charged as a suspect of murder, he gets promoted to do some detective work, and the rest of the game is him solving cases of traffic, homicide, vice, and arson as he tries to make a name for himself at the LAPD. As you've probably guessed, there is no main plot. Most of the game is spent solving standalone cases, but there are some plot lines told across numerous cases, flashbacks, and newspaper articles. And they're good, but they were considerably better the second time through. Why? This might come off as an odd complaint, but the writing can be too subtle. During my first playthrough, certain parts were really confusing, even though they were addressed earlier, but either so offhandedly that it doesn't sink in, or re-evaluated so much later on that you have forgotten about it by the time it's brought up again. By far the worst example is in Homicide. All of the murders you solve are connected, having all been committed by a mystery culprit. It all builds up to a final mission unlike any other in the game, where you're sent on a clue hunt across the city. You get to the last area ready to take this guy down. Theories are circling in your mind. It's really exciting, and... who the hell are you? Obviously, I'm not going to spoil it for those who haven't played the game yet, but even when Cole explains who it is, you still can't remember the guy. When I replayed the game for the review, it was a little better, because it comes off as a bit more realistic, and the whole department was based on a real case, but to this day, it's never been solved, so the developers could have had a bit more fun with it. But when you replay the game, a lot of these issues are much better because you remember the confusion. But yeah, on your first time through, be prepared to scratch your head at certain scenes. With that said, each little story in every case are great! Part of what makes them so good is the gameplay, which I'll get to in a moment. Still, I loved trying to work out what really happened as I played, and of course it helps that they're well written, interesting, and they keep you hooked until the case is closed. The overall atmosphere of the game really helps too. It feels like you're actually playing the classic detective movies that this game hails from. And then there's the soundtrack. Nothing is and ever will be perfect. Except for this game's soundtrack. It fits the mood, it's memorable, it's goosebump worthy, it's possibly my favourite video game OST of all time. It's certainly the most underrated. I genuinely think it's on par with scores like Shadow of the Colossus, Arkham City, even Super Mario Galaxy 2. If this review doesn't convince you to try out the game, just listen to the main theme, then you won't be able to resist buying it. Even though the soundtrack is reason alone to recommend the game, that's not to say the gameplay falls flat. In fact, it's refreshingly unique. Each case has a similar rhythm. After the usual briefing, you do the exact same thing. You leave the PD and drive to the scene of the crime. There's a lot of driving to do in the game, unless you fast travel by letting your partner drive, which is a nice option to have. It's actually quite good fun, though keep in mind that being an officer of the law means you have to drive like everyone else and cause no harm to the city. Oh, sorry!
11K Roger.
I found a shortcut!
God, you're gonna kill us!
Look both ways next time, you idiot! Anyway, once you arrive at the crime scene, you have to do some investigating. All you really do is walk around until you find something that catches your eye and see if it's a clue or not. Doesn't exactly sound riveting, but clues are very important when it comes to interrogations, so you do feel compelled to try and find them all. And while we're on the topic of interrogations, they go a little something like this. You ask a witness or suspect a question in your notebook. As they answer, you need to pick up on two things. One is obviously what they're saying, but what I found I paid attention to more is their facial movements. You see, this game used technology which enabled more realistic face animation, and on top of looking scarily lifelike, it has a purpose in the gameplay. After the person is finished answering the question, you have three options: truth, doubt, or lie. Do they speak calmly and keep a straight face whilst talking? They're most likely telling the truth. It's the other two options where things get interesting. Thankfully, everyone in this world is a terrible liar, so if they're telling you porkies, they won't keep eye contact and will move around uncomfortably. When this happens, you need to look through all the clues. Do you have evidence that they're lying? Select lie and then the evidence. If you can't prove their guilt, go for doubt to get them to tell the truth. It's actually a really compelling system, because I always try my hardest to make sure I pick the right answer, and whenever I don't, I genuinely felt like an idiot. But it's also unbelievably satisfying to get them right. But COD can be a bit short-tempered if you get them wrong.
Are you going to tell me what I want to know, or do we have to take it out of you in lumps?
From there, you typically drive to other destinations, investigate and interrogate, maybe tail someone, and make plenty of phone calls.
Phelps, badge 1247.
How can I help, Detective?
I need an address on a Kavanaugh's bar.
Please.
Certainly, Detective. One moment. Kavanaugh's Bar, corner of Aliso and Hewitt, south side of Union Station.
Thank you.
See, that didn't hurt, now did it? But occasionally there's some action scenes. The most common of these is chasing. Pretty much every culprit decides to run away from you, so you have to, well, chase them. All you do is head towards the enemy until A, you hit them enough times if you're driving, B, you fire a warning shot at them, C, you tackle, slam dunk! Or D, they hide and punch you, then you get into a fist fight. They do make it interesting with some leaps of faith and other obstacles standing in your way, so overall they're okay. Speaking of fistfights, you encounter them every now and then, and again, they're alright. It's really easy and there's not much to it, but it exists to mix things up a bit, and they get the job done fine. Last, and certainly not least, are the gunfights. It's very generic third-person stuff, but the smartest trick is that it's not used very often. The first big shootout takes place at the end of the traffic department, and it's such a breath of fresh air from the usual gameplay and brief bursts of action beforehand. I actually really like these parts, because the actual gunplay feels, well, not necessarily smooth, but satisfying nevertheless. On top of that, I just feel cool infiltrating the enemy hideout and taking on a load of baddies at once. You can also get an action fix with random street crimes you can come across during a case. They're fun, but for some reason, you really have to go out your way to play them. I recommend you wait until you unlock the free roam option, then you can kill some time just by playing through them. Okay, so all the cases have the exact same gameplay pattern as the last, with one exception that I briefly mentioned earlier. So what keeps the game from becoming repetitive? It really is the stories that each case tells that keeps this game from becoming dull. There's always an interesting new plot to unravel, new evidence to find, new suspects to interrogate and maybe chase or shoot. Put simply, the writing and gameplay complement each other perfectly to create an experience that can't be replicated by simply watching a walkthrough. Personally, I really love this game. If you're sick of all the open world and online shooter games that populate the market nowadays, then I can't recommend this game enough. It's a hugely underrated title that deserves much more attention. You can easily forgive the occasional slip up because the gameplay is so compelling and original. I'll give it a score of 92%. LA Noire is a title I think every gamer should at least try for something a little different that's well worth investigating.
McCaffrey, you're under arrest on suspicion of murdering
you
Evelyn
okay
Summers.
there? We should probably get him to A&E.